Thank you. Okay. My mic's on, yeah? Awesome. I'll just wait for this to switch over. Nope, not that. Sorry, a bit of a technical... Here we go, that's the one. Okay. I'm the first to admit that it brings me great joy to admit that this is the most cliche slide you're going to see at this entire conference. And the fact that it's a cliche means that we've won. The web is winning. This is now known to be the next big platform. Progressive web apps, they're amazing. The browser support all of a sudden just got really good this year. Who was waiting around for Safari to land support for service workers? That was amazing. They did it, no one thought they would, and they just landed it, it was great. But PWAs are nothing special, really, when you think about it. They're just going through the normal life cycle of web technologies, where something starts off as a prediction, then it becomes possible because the browsers implement enough of the features for us to actually build the features they were talking about, and then a very, very long time after becomes fact. The key there is that it's a very long time after. This is something that we've seen already loads of times. This is a great example. In the future, more people will visit our sites on mobile devices than desktops, right? This is an old hat now. But I remember when this was just a prediction. Then it became possible because browsers implemented enough of the features for us to do like responsive web design and things like that. And then only now, and only for some sites, are we seeing through analytics that it's true. Some sites have more mobile visitors now than desktop. So going from that possible stage to it actually being a fact is a huge, huge amount of time. That's why we're not all sat. Is that actually animating? Yeah. I don't see the animation, but I just see the thing. That's why we're not all sat hammering away at our keyboards, rewriting all of our Magento sites to be progressive web apps right now. That's not how web technologies work. Instead, what we really have is our current Magento projects. And we've accepted that the next huge paradigm shift is progressive web app. I'm talking about like the whole single page app shell architecture, that style of thing. That we now know that's the next thing in the future. But the problem is, and we're definitely guilty of it in this industry, is that we envision it like this, a single step, left to right, one arrow, one step. And I've got a bit of a problem with that. And it's because of the amount of existing projects that are out there now and that we're going to have in the next few years. Take a second to look at this list. We've got Magento 1 sites still. People still have Magento 1 sites that you're like maintaining and you're trying to get them onto Magento 2. There are Magento 2 sites that are live making clients money already as we speak. And there are Magento 2 sites that are being signed right now and that are going to be signed in the next year or two. So just take a second to visualize, honestly, how much work this is. It's an astronomical amount. It's the bulk of your work for the next few years. Trust me, no one's more excited about this bit on the right, okay? I'm very much involved in doing things in React and all those other things as well. I want to see this future come as fast as possible. But I'm also extremely realistic and pragmatic about this. And I want to do something for the current platform to lead us up to that great future. Now, there are going to be clients that can jump and not have to worry about any kind of transitional steps. They can go straight to a PWA. There are some people in the room who have got platforms out there that are suitable, and in the future, maybe in a year's time or so, the PWA Studio from Magento will be the gold standard, and your clients can go straight to that. If you get those clients that can jump straight there, please do it. Don't take this talk as a discouragement from going straight to the single-page app. That's not what this is about. I want to talk about us visualizing the transition like this, a multi-step process. For all those sites, for all those projects out there that are not going to go straight to a single-page app, what do we do to those? So that's an interesting topic, I think, and one that we've been focusing on. So the question is, what do we work on? Well, it's all about priority, and you have to think what has the biggest impact. And we're in e-commerce, right? And we're always told all the time that speed is important. This is a new tool that Google have got. Don't worry about the numbers too much. It's just a rough estimation. You put a website in, and it uses all the data it's got from e-commerce platforms, and it tells you roughly, don't worry about the top one, because we're going to get to that. The bottom one, it tells you roughly how many visitors you're losing because of the speed of your site. 29%. That's a lot. That's a very large amount. Compared to the rest of the industry, the point here is that that was a default Magento 2 site out of the box. The industry comparison is that it's one of the worst performing things on the planet. So you want to know what we do in the gap between now and PWA? It's not the sexiest thing to talk about, but we need to tackle this. We need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to address this. The elephant in the room, Magento 2 front-end performance. Again, all with the mindset of what can we do to improve the platform whilst we get to that future. Because back in the day, page speed was the thing. We used to look at this as a way to judge websites. But the problem was, if you put a Magento 2 site through it, you used to get like 94 out of 100 on mobile. Isn't that weird? Because you can feel that it's not 94 out of 100, whatever that means. It doesn't feel as good as this says. We've all been on websites, especially Magento 2, where you see modules pop in one after the other, or where you get a report from a client who wants to know why the checkout's so slow. So we kind of always knew this was wrong. But back in the day, that was the way you measured websites. I called it the great Magento 2 page speed trick, because then it was just looking at really high-level metrics, such as how fast something's painted to screen, and were you serving your assets gzipped, for example. Really high-level things. But it wasn't important. It wasn't the right metric. This is TTF MMRI. Never heard of this? You should have. It's the time to first meaningful Magento-related interaction. If you're building an e-commerce platform, how fast the user can actually interact with it, and not just how fast you can paint something on screen, this is the killer metric. This is what you need to measure. So we had that Google PageSpeed score back in the day that was really good, but then we kind of knew it wasn't correct, because if you've ever been on a train and tried to go on a Magento checkout, you just want to kill yourself. And if you do the test manually in DevTools, this is a really crude measurement look. Just throttle the network, slow down the CPU a bit to like simulate a mobile device, roughly. Go to network, disable cache, so it's like a first-time user. Performance panel, hit profile. And this is what we're used to seeing. This is what we kind of felt in our bones when we viewed a Magento site. That after a couple of seconds, something was painted to the screen there. But look, 10, 11, we still don't have swatches, we don't have the gallery or the mini cart. So this is what, sorry, I don't know if it's me that's doing that. So this is how we experience the site. It's a bit of a crude measurement, but waiting for those elements to pop in till we can visually see them was actually a really, really good way of measuring this site. DevTools gave up measuring that after about 18 seconds, and it takes about 20 odds to actually become, for those elements to pop in. Turns out, though, there's a new tool that's way more advanced than PageSpeed that can lead us in the right direction. If you put that same website through Lighthouse, 53 out of 100. Sounds more realistic, right? Crucially, though, this one at the bottom. Consistently interactive, 21 seconds. Now, I called it TTF MMRI. They called it consistently interactive. I'll let you be the judge who's the best at naming things. The point is we both came to the same conclusion. What Lighthouse is looking for here is when the network settles down, when all the JavaScript has stopped running its main code so the user can actually interact with it. And this is amazing. I mean, that's not amazing. It's amazing that we've now got a tool that can automatically tell us this score, because then someone can be tasked with improving the performance of a site, and you just keep running it through Lighthouse until that number goes down, right? So that's interesting, but it's 2018. We've got a website that takes 21 seconds to become interactive on 3G connections. It's not good enough, right? So what's wrong with Magento 2's front end? It's obviously because it's using ancient JavaScript, right? jQuery, jQuery UI, knockout, all those things are just absolutely killing performance. Require.js is terrible. Why they chose that as a module system, I'll never know. Hundreds of JavaScript files. Of course, that's not going to be good, and it's not React. Last one's a joke. So this is the reason why the performance is really bad, right? Wrong. Get used to that red cross, by the way. That's the theme of this talk. That is the conclusion you come to if you don't pour some engineering time and effort into actually solving this. Turns out it's nothing to do with that. It's this. In any JavaScript file or in the body of the HTML, any entry point can be registered like this. Causes a network request. You can think of these orange lines as one network request that takes some bytes to download, okay? That's how to visualize this. The problem is when we download that first one, we read its dependencies, and it has 3 dependencies, and we have to go and download those. And you can probably guess what's coming next. For each of those, we have to do the same thing, and before you know it, we've got a spiraling graph of dependencies that are being resolved over the network on the client. It's really odd. And this is for one entry point. That blue dot there is one. There could be lots of these on a page. In numbers, it looks like this. 164 JavaScript files for this configurable product page, 623 kilobytes of code. Crazy, right? Don't worry, we've got HTTP2 to the rescue. If we just get this configured on our servers, ask our host to do this, most of our problems go away, right? Remember what I said? Wrong. People have said this to me before, and it's really, really incorrect. In fact, all the measurements you see today are done on a server with HTTP2. It helps you with parallel downloads. Our issue is that we're downloading each file before we can read its dependencies and download all of their files, and we have that knock-on waterfall effect. That's why modules load in slowly on Magento sites. Turns out it's a solved problem. It's always been solved. Require.js, which is the system Magento uses for loading modules, has always had an optimizer from day one. Magento just don't include it for various reasons, which we'll see in a moment. But just to know that Require.js, if anyone's used Webpack or any of the modern tooling, you think that code splitting is like a new concept, or you think that having the concept of a seed bundle and then some additional code loaded after the fact, if you think that's a new concept, look into this tool. This has been doing it from day one. And also, the Require.js optimizer, when you run it, it includes Uglify.js, which we all do with things like Webpack, and it will just compress everything for you as well. So it turns out it can only do all this. We're missing out. I'm completely lost now, but we're missing out on something because look at this. Next slide, please. That's it. Stop. This is in reality what we could have been doing from day one. 4 JavaScript files on this page, 274 kilobytes. Right? That's a huge difference. In fact, that's actually better than a lot of new platforms that are coming out right now. So that feels like the right thing to do. So next slide. Can someone see me? Maybe just do this. The obvious question is, what makes it difficult? Why don't we do this? Why don't we in this community go about this? Next slide. Yeah. Sorry about this. The bundling options in the admin are like misleading. Do not touch them. I've never turned them on myself. I guarantee you they can't be doing the right thing. They're running PHP for a start. Yeah, here you go. Node is, sorry, I'm like, whoa, thrown off now. The bundling options in the admin, they run in PHP. They don't understand the proper dependency graph of AMD modules, and it can't run the uglifier, which can create the minified code at the end. The second thing is that Node is required for bundling. For some people, that's a bit of a drawback because Magento has always been able to run on shared hosting. I'm guessing if anyone is at a conference listening to this talk, you're not using shared hosting anyway, so it's not a problem. Node is one of the most well-supported software projects on the planet. Anyone can install this on your CI server or in production. And the last one is the really important bit. It's the really hard bit. Yeah. There's a problem when you do bundling with Require.js is that it needs to be smart, right? It needs to just include on the page the code you need. You can't just go and bundle everything together and create one big JavaScript file and serve it. That's not what I'm talking about here today. I'm talking about being way smarter than that, having what's known as like a seed bundle, initial bundle, that you serve to your users, and then you progressively add more code after the fact. This is totally doable right now, today. Next, please. Who's ever opened this file? Hands up, who knows what's in this file? Magento generates this by looking at all your installed and enabled modules, and it pulls out tiny configuration blocks from the require.js files. It concatenates them together in one big file, and it uses the sequencing within Magento to know what order they go in. And that's really important because the way that the JavaScript configurations are merged in the end, it's like last one wins. This is how you extend Magento. This is why the system's so extendable on the front end, and it's all good. But the brainwave for us at JH was when we realized that this is the gold. If you want to do that bundling and get it dead right, only include the code on the page that you're going to serve, you need to get the data out of this file. This file includes the gold. Next slide. What we want to see is this. Just progress again. In that top file, progress again. Sorry, this is so cringy now. We want to stick all the critical modules for the entire website into that top file. But when we do that, it will be compressed so there'll be as small amount of code as possible. And then this bottom line shows you an example of what we would do on a product page, for example, where you've got the zoomer and all that code that's only used on the product page. You'll just load another bundle. So this is kind of the way forward. And just keep progressing till the slides like through, because the numbers speak for themselves. JavaScript requests 164, down to 4. JavaScript payload down to 274 kilobytes. I urge you to test some e-commerce platforms and see if they've only got that amount of code. Next. Next. I have no idea what's coming up. And again. Now when we put it back through Lighthouse, remember that measurement before, 21 seconds? 6 seconds. Okay, we've added an extra 1.5 seconds up front, and that's bad, and we'll get to that in a second. Because we've taken a load of modules and packed them into that top require.js file. So of course, we're giving the user a bit more to download up front, but interactive 15 seconds sooner. Imagine going to your clients or your bosses or your project managers, telling them that on your e-commerce store, where we're always told how important performance was, there's one technique that can get you interactive 15 seconds sooner. Don't you think it's insane this isn't commonplace? Right. Hopefully there's some developers in the room or some people who know about the speed problems in Magento 2 feeling a bit like this. And really, again, I'm not trying to discourage us from going to that PWA future. Trust me, I want to be there as fast as possible myself. I just want to put a bit of pressure on those people building them. Because I'm doing hand movements, you see, they can't figure out. Okay. But we can go further. The amazing thing is if you just do that, and it's weird yet, right? We're talking about bundling in 2018. Of course, we should be doing it. But if you do it and get it right, it's the really hard bit. If you can get it right, you can start doing some crazy stuff, like going further and moving scripts from the head into the footer. And to do that, though, we need to start calling out Magento, the core of Magento, and also third-party modules where they put scripts in line because of this. We have this right now in the head of the document. And what we've done is we've packed in, I'm not supposed to move away from the camera, but we've packed in loads of code into this file. So that's not great, really, but it's good because of the interactive a lot sooner. What we really want to do is move it here. So you see that's the closing body tag. We want to move those script tags there. This is like the next performance step. This is really performance 101 stuff, but this is the next step. So, yeah. This is just a random template out of the Magento core. And obviously, the script tag being there and the call straight to require means that that has to be available in the global scope, which means the only safe thing for Magento to do is load all the JavaScript in the head so that this is always available. This is the thing that's really holding us back now. So, go on again. That's what so this was the proof of concept. Sorry, go back. There, stop. Really, what's the best thing to do is to move this into an external module, but just as a proof of concept that this actually works, I just split that file up, did a bit of XML from Stack Overflow, and just placed it below the script tags. Still right next to the body tag, though, look. So crucially, we've got all those compiled modules out of the head. Next slide. Next slide. Keep going. This is where we get to. One more. This is becoming a bit crazy. This is putting people who do PWA, making them feel a bit hot under the collar, because I've not touched any Magento code here. We've just applied this smart optimizations, what I call smart optimizations. First paint in 3 seconds. This is all on mobile throttle devices and everything. This is straight from Lighthouse, consistently interactive in less than 6 seconds. Again, I urge you to compare this to some other things that are out there. Next slide. And then just keep going till it's all filled out. TTF MMRI, again, I'll let you choose if consistently interactive is a better name. I don't think so. Less than 6 seconds, 3 seconds, first paint. Brilliant. Next slide. Again, the numbers aren't important, but look at the relative difference. 29% user loss on the left, only 10% on the right. Next slide. From one of the worst in the industry to one of the best in the industry. Not done anything other than optimizations. Next slide. The point here is this is not just a talk about bundling. This is it's a philosophical point about we should be focusing on performance always, whether it's now in Magento 2, whether it's in the PWA future. Because I guarantee you, when we're all doing React apps, we're going to have the exact same performance problems, except they're a bit worse because you can just install anything through NPM. So getting familiar with doing performance work is the most important thing you can do. Sam Saccone is well known. He works at Google. He's well known for his work on performance. And he came out of this tweet recently, and I screenshotted it because it's the perfect accompaniment to this talk. Crucially, don't just add a service worker to your site. If you want to make your site fast, start by optimizing the low-hanging fruit. And he's even got a screenshot there of auditing the site with Lighthouse, and he's turned off the measurement for progressive web app because progressive web apps follow great performance. Performance is a prerequisite for PWA. Next slide. I'm going to try and speed up now to get this done. So basically, we've done the hard stuff, right? And by the way, I couldn't tell you all the details. Please grab me after if you want to know how to get that bundling in place, because it's going to transform every one of your projects. But because we've done that, we've done it the right way around. We've tackled performance first. It would be interesting, and we could gamify basically getting that progressive web app score up now. And we could do that guilt-free because we know we've done the hard bit first. We've got it faster for users. Let's see if we can add something like an offline fallback page, which is a bit cliche nowadays, but it gets you used to service workers and things that are coming up in PWAs. So let's go through these slides really fast. I'm just going to keep my hand here and point forward. So basically, you don't need to read the code. It's a visual cue of how much stuff is involved. Adding a manifest file, next slide. Adding some scripts to a head, next slide. Not hard. Next two, implement a offline fallback page. Not even going to show you the code for that because it's so boring. It's basically a Magento module that when you go to /offline, it serves some custom content. So for your clients, it could just be a little branded offline page or a crossword puzzle or anything you want. I'm not going to show you the code for that. Next bit's create a service worker. Some of that code is debugging code, but a really basic one, it's just saying if this site is definitely offline, sorry, if the user is definitely offline, serve them a page from cache. We build the cache up via that, via some workbox configuration. This is going to read our bundles and our files and basically generate the logic for cache invalidation. Next slide. Then we're going to register the service worker, normal stuff. Next slide. And wait, it's a big reveal. So that's all we've done. So simple things. We've solved performance first. We've done it the right way around. We feel good. We're being true to our engineering backgrounds. We're doing things the right way around. And what score do we get for PWA? Next slide. Woohoo! 100. So what's interesting is that you might see people just sticking a service worker on a Magento 2 site and saying they've done a progressive web app. And obviously that's nothing more than a marketing exercise. But if you was to tweet this and say, look, we've got Magento 2 up to 74, and by the way, if you do a bit of CSS optimization, like moving some of those files out of the head, you can get that into the mid-80s, close to 90. And that's the kind of thing you can get to. Next slide. I'm aware that we're way over. It doesn't matter who created these platforms, but one of these is that Magento 2 site. The other two are recent platforms that have come out, and you can see it's right up there. Next slide. Next slide. If you don't believe me, I was in the Netherlands giving this talk a while ago. I never had a chance to get another domain name. If you don't believe me, go to this site. It's particularly this page, 'cause I know this one definitely works. It's where I've moved all the script tags to the foot, I've done all the bundling, and you can measure it, you can go offline, and it works, and everything else. This is just Magento 2 out the box. Next slide. Really fast, John, I know. We've only scratched the surface here. This is Performance Basics, Performance 101. It just turns out that it's very hard to do in Magento, but it can absolutely be done. Clients will appreciate the focus. Everyone will appreciate this focus on performance. And number 4, it's not a waste of time, because learning about how to measure performance, how to do performance work, is your bread and butter forever in Magento 2 when we get to PWAs anyway. So you're going to be well placed after learning these things. Thank you. And the last slide is my contact details if anyone wants to ask me questions. I'm sorry that it was a bit of a train wreck.